Alright, if you play chess, you know this feeling. You get to a point in the opening where you face a choice. And it's a choice so big it can define not just the game you're in, but who you are as a player. Today, we're digging into that exact moment, the Italian game versus the Ruy Lopez.
It all starts right here. These are pretty much the most classic principled opening moves you can get. White controls the center, black controls the center, white develops a knight, black develops a knight. Everything is perfectly logical, totally balanced. And then comes move 3.
And this is it. This is that moment. You're white. It's your move. You've just landed in what is probably the most common position in all of chess, from your local club to the World Championship. And the decision you make right now, well, it's going to send the game down one of two totally different roads.
And let's be clear, this isn't just a move, it's a statement. It's you declaring what kind of player you are. Are you a tactical brawler who's looking for a quick knockout punch? Or are you a deep positional player who's happy to slowly squeeze your opponent for the next 50 moves?
So, this big choice, it all comes down to one piece, your light-squared bishop. Where you put this guy on move 3 is the literal fork in the road between these two legendary openings. So come on, let's take a walk down the first path.
So, path number 1 is the Italian game. And the thinking here is really simple and direct. You're basically launching a full-on frontal assault on your opponent's position right from the get-go. It's aggressive, it feels natural, and it has a very, very clear target in mind. And here it is. This is the whole point. By playing your bishop to c4, you are immediately pointing a dagger straight at the f7 pawn. Now, why is that square so special? Because it's the weakest point on the board. It's the only pawn that's only defended by one piece, black's king. The Italian game is basically shouting, I see your weakest spot, and I'm coming for it right now.
And even after you pick the Italian, you've got options. You can choose your weapon. You could go for the Giuoco Piano, the quiet game, which is for a slower, more strategic kind of fight. Or you could offer up the Evans Gambit, sacrificing a pawn to build this huge dominating center. Or you can just go straight for the throat with the fried liver attack. And trust me, that name tells you everything you need to know about the kind of tactical mess it creates.
Okay, let's rewind. We're back at that crossroads on move 3. This time, we're taking the other path, the Spanish game, which you probably know better as the Ruy Lopez. Now, if the Italian is a direct punch, the Spanish, well, this is a slow, sophisticated, long-term squeeze. The move is bishop to b5. And you can see the difference immediately, right? Instead of going for that f7 pawn, the bishop puts this really annoying indirect pressure on the knight over on c6. So why do that? Because that knight is the key defender of black's pawn in the center, the e5 pawn. The Spanish isn't about attacking the king early on. It's all about fighting for control of the center. And the strategies you'll find in the Spanish game are just so deep. You've got things like the exchange variation, where white just trades off the bishop for the knight to wreck black's pawn structure for later. You have the infamous Berlin defense, the Berlin Wall, which is this incredibly solid fortress for black. And then you have wild stuff like the Marshall attack, a gutsy pawn sacrifice by black that leads to some of the sharpest, most theory-heavy battles in all of chess. You know, the legendary Bobby Fischer absolutely loved the exchange variation. For him, it was a way to get a tiny but permanent advantage that he could just press and press and press all the way to the endgame. It's a real gift for that patient, strategic kind of player.
Okay, so we've seen both paths. Let's put them right next to each other. It's time for the tale of the tape, a direct, head-to-head breakdown of what really separates these two openings.
Let's just run through the main differences. With the Italian, your primary target is the f7 pawn. You're aiming at the king. But with the Spanish, your target is that c6 knight. You're fighting for the center. This makes the Italian a very tactical and direct opening, while the Spanish is much more positional and deep, and that leads to complexity, right? The Italian is way easier for beginners to pick up and play, whereas the Spanish, you gotta know your theory. And all this flows into the endgame. Italian games tend to favor the player who's better at tactics, while Spanish endgames are really a reward for the better long-term strategist.
So, the takeaway here seems pretty obvious, doesn't it? Beginners play the simple, direct Italian, and the really serious Grandmasters play the deep, strategic Spanish. But there's a really interesting modern twist to this story. Based on everything we've just talked about, it feels like a settled debate. The Ruy Lopez is more complex, it's more respected, it's just the better opening for a serious player, right? Well, not anymore. In what's been a really surprising shift, the best players in the world have started ditching the Spanish,
and are actually playing its supposedly simpler cousin.
So what's going on? Why is the so-called lazy Italian suddenly back in fashion at the top level? Well, it really comes down to one thing: computers. Chess engines have analyzed the Ruy Lopez, especially lines like the Berlin defense, so deeply that a lot of them just lead to these forced, dead-even, drawish positions. And top players like Magnus Carlsen? They don't want to play a memory contest. They're playing the Italian on purpose, to sidestep all that heavy theory, get a position where both sides can play, and just play chess.
So in the end, the choice between the Italian and the Spanish isn't really about which one is better. It's about who you are. What's your style? Do you thrive on having a clear target and getting into a tactical brawl right from move 3? Or do you get more satisfaction from applying that slow, subtle, long-term pressure and winning a strategic masterpiece? The answer to that question, that defines the player you are. So, what's it going to be?